Good afternoon, members of the First Estate, and thank you so much for being with us always. We, meaning the civil society. I would also like, I'm from SEATINI. SEATINI work on economic issues. I would also like to add my voice, our voice also as SEATINI, on the issue of reopening the borders, the EAC borders. Today, all the East African countries are talking about post-COVID economic recovery. And in that debate, opening the borders should be one of the key actions. Because for a country like Uganda, regional trade is very, very critical. In fact, almost 60% of our trade is within the region. And when we talk about regional trade, we are talking about mainly cross-border trade, and we are talking about women. So, for the good of our economy, let us open up the border, but also for the good of our women cross-border traders. You have heard what Sheila has enumerated, the challenges facing the women when they are crossing the borders. They are crossing, so why don't we open officially the borders? And I would also like to call upon our government, the 6 East African governments, also to address the challenges in the regional trade. You remember before the closure of the borders due to COVID, the Rwanda-Uganda border was already closed. And we are calling upon the East African community, the 2 governments, to forget that. This is post-COVID. COVID happened. COVID has changed so many things. Let us forget those wars. And there are also so many NTBs, non-trade barriers. Remember, before COVID, there were the trade wars, the milk wars, the eggs. We are asking also our governments to resolve those wars. Let us trade amicably within the region. What COVID has taught us is that trade has to start at domestic level, then at regional level. You know, global trade is no longer moving, but women are still trading within the East African community. And that's where we should put emphasis as a region. I would also like to re-emphasize the issue which Sheila has raised, the issue of the stimulus package. You have heard our sisters, what they are saying. The market, our sisters. Those are our sisters, those are our mothers working in the markets. The stimulus package should be appropriate for those people. Today, there are monies which were put in UDB. I ask you, can our sisters there go to UDB to get those loans? So we are calling upon government to put in place measures, a stimulus package which is addressing the realities on the ground. And lastly, in the long term, government is also talking about the economy. You know, you had our president talking about the import substitution strategy and the need to grow our own industries. And he always talks about it, that Uganda is a supermarket, which is very true, and that we are going to stimulate the economy through industrialization. And we support that. But what we are proposing, that in the rethinking of the economy, let it be transparent, let it be inclusive, let it be participatory. Let women's voices be heard. Let us hear the women Nakato's voice. Let us hear it in the rethink of reviving the economy. And I also call upon our partners, Agent Action Fund and others with whom we have been together in this struggle to be able to continue that support, of ensuring that women's voices are heard loud and clear in the kitchen when all these policies are being cooked. The challenge as Ugandans and as government is to be able to ensure that those informal businesses get this money. Our sisters there in the market, they are asking for loans, and there are ways in Nakawa market how they can be able to access those loans. We have in place associations like UWIL, Uganda Women's Entrepreneurs Association, with so many registered women entrepreneurs registered to this association. That association can be able to disburse that money to those SMEs, those business people. So let us not say that because they are informal, they are what, we are not going to give them any loans. And we have to be clear. That's who we are. And we need to get away from that to grow our economy. Lastly, let me also talk about the issue of opening up the border and the infections across the borders, as has been raised by Kenneth. For me, this is personal to me, is that COVID is here to stay. We don't know when we are getting the vaccine, or when they get the vaccine, we are going to get it in Africa. That's also an issue. But we need to learn to live with COVID. Last week, we were in a press conference, and we were calling upon government that when you are talking about people to put on masks, to wash and to distance, start with the food. Eat well. Eat the ginger, eat the lemon, put on the mask, sanitize and distance. Let us just strengthen our bodies so that we can be able to fight the virus. And for me, I also think we need to fight COVID as a region, not as a country. Tanzania don't come here. Rwanda don't. Let us fight COVID as a region. Let us open up the borders. We can be able to fight COVID as a region. When I talked about transparency, what I meant was that such policies should be discussed by the Ugandans. For example, the import substitution strategy, that's an issue of trade. It's a trade policy. Let it go in the trade policy. Let it go to the trade ministry. Let there be discussion on radio. Let there be discussion, among maybe even academicians. Let us know what this strategy entails. The biggest challenge Uganda has been facing is the fact that policies are made maybe sometimes even in press conferences, without looking at what needs to be done. For example, the import substitution strategy. You ask some people, even in the ministries, what does it mean? What are we going to add value on? Some people have even been thinking that we are going to stop bringing everything, importing everything. We are going to start manufacturing everything we want here, which isn't true. So there is that lack of clarity when it comes to such strategies. And this is why we are saying, let them be open. Let us discuss them. Because you see, the import substitution strategy we are not implementing it for the first time. When you look at our history, we in the 70s, 80s, were doing import substitution. 90s, we started the structured adjustment programs where we opened up, we liberalized, we privatized everything. Now we want to go back. But what does it entail? to go back. So that's the transparency and participation I'm talking about. The issue of the trade wars, the political issues, like you are saying, haven't been resolved. Politics will never be resolved. Because when we talk about regional integration, the summit is made up by the presidents. And those are the people who are taking decisions. So politics will be there all the time. But our hope is that economic imperatives will override the politics. And that's what we are calling for. That's why we are calling upon our leaders that please put aside the politics. Let us look at the economic imperatives. People are dying of poverty. No? Don't talk about politics. So that's what we are talking about. Then the issue of the stimulus package. Beyond fiscal. Fiscal is budget and taxes. Already the government is doing that. There are issues about the safety nets, the food. Food was distributed. There are also monies which are given to old people. But the whole issue which we need to ask, is this enough? You are giving how many people who are beyond 80 and how much money per month? Is that enough? What kind of social safety nets do we need? We need safety nets so that the hospitals, that medicine is there in hospitals, so that you don't need to have money to go to hospital. We need social services, water, electricity. In fact, they talked about reducing electricity costs and water. But electricity cost, you have liberalized, you have privatized your electricity. How can you tell somebody to reduce the cost of electricity? And this is the whole issue around the rethinking of the economy. Maybe to digress, we have been talking about the issue of giving loans to MSMEs. The whole challenge is that Uganda liberalized the financial sector. All the banks are not ours. And that's why government had a challenge. Bank of Uganda reduced the CBR. And the banks ignored it because they are private banks. We sold off our UCB. Because today, if we had a UCB, when I was growing up, UCB had branches all over. We wouldn't be talking about this issue because people are saving. People are saving, people are borrowing automatically. But that one is all dead. So we need a rethink of the entire economy as we move forward in post-COVID economic recovery.